"Don't lift my skirt, please," she pleaded, but the warrior did and lost his soul. On the spot, the sun hung low over the desert, casting long shadows across the dusty streets of Red Rock, a small town at the edge of the wild western frontier. The wind carried the scent of dry sand and distant sagebrush, rustling through the wooden planks of the main street. Most townsfolk had already shuttered their doors, keeping inside where it was cooler and safer. The quiet was almost complete, broken only by the occasional clatter of a loose shutter or the soft hoot of a lone owl preparing to hunt. Into this sleepy town rode a man on horseback, his hat pulled low over his brow. He was a warrior of the old ways, known across the land for his skill with a rifle and his fearless nature. His name was Jace, though few in Red Rock had ever heard it. His dark coat flapped with the rhythm of his horse's trot, and the boots he wore were worn smooth from years of travel. Jace had come to Red Rock following whispers of trouble, rumors of a cursed object hidden somewhere nearby. The townsfolk spoke of it in hushed tones, calling it a spirit amulet with powers beyond understanding. Jace didn't know the details, and he didn't care. Curiosity had always been his weakness. He thrived on the unknown, on the thrill of discovering what others feared, and something about this town, with its quiet streets and nervous glances, told him that the unknown was waiting for him here. As he rode past the saloon, he saw her. She was standing near the edge of the street, just where the shadow of the general store fell across the sand. She looked out of place in Red Rock, almost like she belonged somewhere far older, far wilder. Her long hair shone like burnished copper in the evening sun, and she wore a simple dress that swayed gently in the breeze. Around her neck hung a small amulet, gleaming with an unusual light that seemed to shift and shimmer even in the fading daylight. Jace slowed his horse, eyeing the amulet. Something about it drew him in. It was like a spark in the darkness, small but impossible to ignore. He had faced many dangers in his life, yet this one felt different. He couldn't explain why, but he knew that touching it might be a mistake. And yet his curiosity gnawed at him. The woman noticed his gaze and stepped back, clutching the amulet to her chest. Her eyes, wide and dark, met his with a mixture of fear and determination. "Don't touch it," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "Please, don't touch my amulet." Jace raised an eyebrow, amused. "An amulet, huh? You look like you're protecting a treasure," he said, dismounting his horse with practiced ease. The horse whinnied softly, sensing the tension in the air. "It's more than a treasure," she replied, her voice low but firm. "It holds power. Dangerous power. If you touch it without permission, it could take more than you think." Jace chuckled, though there was a hint of unease in his laughter. He had heard warnings before, most of them empty, but something about the way she spoke made him pause. The wind seemed still around them, the desert holding its breath as if waiting for his next move. "I've never been afraid of a little danger," he said, reaching out a hand. The woman's eyes widened. "Stop!" "I'm warning you." But Jace's hand moved faster than her words. He touched the amulet, feeling a sudden pulse of energy surge through him. It was nothing like he had ever experienced. A wave of heat and light raced up his arm, and in that instant he felt something strange. Something heavy, something that wasn't quite part of him, began to leave him. He stumbled back, dropping to one knee as the amulet glowed brighter than before. The woman gasped and caught his arm, steadying him. You've triggered it," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "The amulet has taken part of your soul." "You're not completely gone yet, but—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "You've lost more than you can see." Jace's vision blurred, the edges of the world shimmering. He felt hollow, as if part of him had been ripped away. Yet he was still alive, still aware, still standing on the dusty street. He looked at the woman, a mix of anger, fear, and awe in his eyes. "You mean I'm cursed?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not cursed," she said, shaking her head, "but you are incomplete. Until the amulet's power is restored, until your soul is whole again, you will feel its absence. You will feel weaker, haunted by shadows that aren't real. You must prove yourself to regain what you've lost." Jace gritted his teeth, struggling to stand taller despite the hollow feeling inside him. "Prove myself? To an amulet? To what exactly?" "The amulet's spirit," she said. "It was once part of a great warrior long ago. The spirit waits for someone worthy. You've touched it before you were ready. But perhaps there's still a chance to make it right." He studied her face, seeing determination and wisdom in her eyes. She was not like the women of Red Rock, soft and easily frightened. She was strong, brave, and unyielding, a guardian of something ancient and powerful. He respected that. Somehow that respect calmed the panic rising in him. "All right," he said, straightening his shoulders. "Then tell me what I must do." She hesitated, as if weighing the risk of trusting him. Finally she nodded. "There's a place beyond the canyon, past the old riverbed, where the amulet's power can be tested. Only there can your soul be restored. It will not be easy. Many have tried and failed. You must face your fears. You must resist the temptation to take more than you are given, and you must trust me." Jace's eyes narrowed, determination settling over him. "I've faced bandits, storms, and desert snakes. I can face a spirit, too." She studied him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "Very well. We leave at dawn. Follow me, and do exactly as I say. One wrong move, and the amulet may take more than it already has." The rest of the evening passed in uneasy silence. Jace watched her as she moved about, carefully preparing for the journey ahead. She packed a small bag filled with provisions and tools, and secured the amulet safely around her neck. Though she never said it aloud, Jace could sense the weight of responsibility she carried. This was more than a journey, it was a test of character, courage, and trust. That night Jace slept little. The desert was quiet, but the hollow feeling in his chest reminded him that he had touched something far greater than himself. Shadows flickered in the corners of his mind, strange visions of warriors and battles long past, and whispers of voices he could not understand. He felt both alive and drained, a paradox that left him restless and alert. At first light, the woman waited by the edge of town, her horse saddled and ready. She did not speak as Jace approached. There was a quiet understanding between them. He mounted his horse, feeling the strange emptiness still pulsing within him, and followed her into the rising sun. The journey began across rolling hills and dry riverbeds, each mile carrying them farther from Red Rock and deeper into the unknown. The desert stretched endlessly, a mixture of beauty and danger. Cacti rose like silent sentinels, and distant cliffs cast long shadows over the sand. Every so often, Jace felt a tug at his soul, a reminder of the amulet's power and the cost of his curiosity. The woman rode beside him, calm and steady, her eyes scanning the horizon. "The amulet chooses its challenges," she said quietly, as if reading his thoughts. "It will not give up its power easily, neither will the spirit that guards it. You must be ready for anything." Jace nodded, gripping the reins tightly. "I'm ready," he said. But even as he spoke, he could feel the lingering effects of the amulet. It was as if a part of him had wandered off somewhere, leaving him hollow and incomplete. He knew the journey ahead would test him in ways he had never imagined. By midday they reached the edge of a deep canyon. A river, thin and winding, ran far below, its waters sparkling in the sunlight. The woman guided her horse to a narrow path along the canyon's edge. "The trials begin here," she said. "Stay close and remember, you must follow my lead." Jace felt a shiver of anticipation mixed with fear. The desert had been dangerous before, but this was something else entirely. Something alive. Something ancient. He swallowed hard, adjusting his hat, and nodded. "Lead the way," he said. As they descended the narrow path, the wind howled through the canyon, carrying whispers of old battles and forgotten warriors. Jace's heart pounded. He had entered a world where the rules were not his own, a place where bravery alone might not be enough. And yet, even as uncertainty gripped him, he felt a strange thrill. Adventure, danger, mystery, all at once. The hollow part of his soul ached, reminding him of his mistake, but also driving him forward. He had touched the amulet, yes, but he had also chosen to face the consequences. And the story, his story, was only just beginning. The canyon wind whipped around them, tugging at Jace's coat and sending dust into his eyes. The path was narrow, carved along the edge of sheer cliffs. Every step required careful footing, and one misstep could mean falling into the rocky riverbed far below. The woman rode calmly beside him, her horse sure-footed, her expression calm and confident, as if she had walked this path countless times before. "Keep your eyes on the trail, not the canyon below," she said, her voice steady. "Fear can trick you into moving wrong." Jace gritted his teeth and nodded. The hollow feeling in his chest tugged at him again, making it hard to focus. Shadows seemed to twist in the corners of his vision, and whispers of voices long gone echoed faintly in his mind. He realized this wasn't just a physical test. The amulet's power was reaching inside him, testing his mind, his patience, and his courage. The woman glanced at him. "The amulet senses weakness," she said quietly. "If it feels doubt, fear, or impatience, It will make your journey harder. He didn't like the idea of something invisible judging him, deciding whether he was worthy, but he also knew he had no choice. He had to keep going, and he had to trust her guidance. Hours passed as they moved slowly through the canyon. The sun climbed higher, making the rocks glint and shimmer. Occasionally they stopped to rest, and the woman would check the amulet. She touched it carefully, as if feeling the faint pulse of energy inside. "You will have to face your trial alone soon," she said finally, looking at Jace. "The spirit will test you. It will show you visions. Visions of your fears, your regrets, even your desires. You must not falter." Jace nodded, trying to steady his nerves. "What happens if I fail?" he asked. The woman's eyes darkened. "Then the amulet may take more of your soul. You may never be whole again. But I believe you can pass. I can guide you, but you must walk the path yourself." By late afternoon, the canyon widened, revealing a hidden plateau where jagged rocks formed a natural amphitheater. The woman dismounted and led Jace to the center. Here, the air felt different, thicker, almost electric. The amulet around her neck glowed faintly, casting shadows that danced across the stone floor. "This is where your trial begins," she said. "Step forward when you are ready." Jace took a deep breath, feeling the hollow ache in his chest. He nodded, and she stepped back. The amulet's glow intensified, and suddenly the world shifted around him. Shadows rose from the stones, twisting into shapes he recognized, bandits he had fought, wild animals he had faced, and even himself, in moments he wished he could forget.
He stumbled, almost losing his balance, and a voice whispered in his ear, "You are not worthy."
"You will fail. You are weak." Jace clenched his fists, forcing himself to breathe steadily. "I am not weak," he muttered to himself. "I face my fears. I face the truth." The shadows reacted, moving faster, becoming more threatening. He saw himself trapped in dark alleys, failing the people he cared about. He saw a life where he had never been brave, never acted, never learned. The hollow feeling in his chest grew sharper, a reminder of the soul he had lost. "Focus!" the woman's voice rang out, clear and strong. "Face what is real, not what is imagined." Jace shut his eyes and breathed deeply. He pictured the canyon, the rocks, the sun shining above. He pictured the woman beside him, calm and steady. Slowly, the shadows began to fade. He opened his eyes and the world solidified again, though the air still hummed with energy. The amulet pulsed brightly, and a new vision appeared, this time not of fear, but of opportunity. A path of glowing stones led to the edge of the plateau. Jace realized this was the next part of the trial, a test of trust. He had to step onto the stones, one by one, with nothing to hold on to but his courage. He hesitated, looking at the gap between the stones and the edge of the cliff. One misstep could send him plummeting. But the woman nodded encouragingly. "Step forward. Trust yourself. Trust the path." Jace took a deep breath and lifted his foot onto the first glowing stone. It felt solid. One after another, he stepped carefully, his heart racing. Shadows flickered around him, whispering doubts, but he ignored them. Slowly, deliberately, he crossed the stones, reaching the other side. The amulet's glow softened, and the hollow ache in his chest eased slightly. He had passed the first part of the trial. The woman smiled faintly. "Well done," she said. "But this is only the beginning. The spirit will test you further before your soul can be restored." As the sun dipped lower, they set up camp on the plateau. Jace gathered firewood while the woman prepared a simple meal. For the first time he noticed the quiet strength in her movements, the patience and care she carried even under pressure. "You are stronger than you think," she said quietly as he sat beside the fire. "But strength alone is not enough. You must also have wisdom, humility, and courage." Jace nodded, staring into the flames. He realized how much he had underestimated the trial. This journey was not about fighting or surviving. It was about understanding himself, facing his weaknesses, and earning back what he had lost. That night, as the fire crackled and the stars blazed above, Jace felt a strange calm. The hollow in his chest was still there, but he felt ready to face whatever came next. The amulet had taken a part of him, yes, but it had also given him a chance to grow, to learn, to become more than he had been, and he was determined not to fail. Morning arrived with a pale light casting a silver glow across the plateau. Jace awoke to the sound of the wind rustling through jagged rocks and the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. The hollow feeling in his chest was still present, though less intense than the day before. He knew this was temporary, a lingering effect of the amulet's trial. The woman was already awake, examining the amulet carefully. Its glow was soft, almost like it was breathing. She looked up as Jace approached. "Today will be harder," she said. "The spirit will show you your past, your mistakes, regrets, and fears. You must face them, or the amulet will not release its hold on your soul." Jace nodded, determined. "I'm ready," he said, though his stomach churned at the thought. They set out across the plateau, following a narrow path that wound toward a cluster of jagged rocks. As they approached, the air grew colder, and shadows began to stretch unnaturally. Shapes rose from the rocks, figures from Jace's past, enemies he had fought, towns he had left behind, moments he wished he could undo. The first shadow stepped forward, mimicking a man he had fought years ago. "You failed him," the shadow hissed. "You could not protect those you loved." Jace took a deep breath. "I did my best," he said firmly. "I cannot undo the past, but I can learn from it." The shadow wavered, then disappeared. Another emerged, this time a version of himself, young and unsure, standing at a crossroads in life. "You are not ready," the shadow said. "You lack wisdom. You lack courage." Jace met his own eyes in the shadow. "I may not have been ready then, but I am ready now. I face my fears. I face the truth of who I am." One by one the shadows confronted him, each representing a choice, a regret, or a failure. Jace faced them all without flinching. With each challenge, the hollow ache in his chest eased slightly. He began to feel whole again, slowly, step by step. Finally, the amulet pulsed brightly, and the last shadow, a dark, indistinct figure representing the unknown, rose before him. It loomed large, casting a shadow over the plateau. Jace could feel the weight of all he had faced pressing down on him. "Do you accept yourself?" the figure asked, its voice deep and echoing. Jace stood tall despite the fear. "I accept who I am. I accept my mistakes and my strengths. I will not run from what I must face." The shadow shivered and dissipated, leaving the plateau bathed in golden sunlight. The amulet's glow softened, and Jace felt a warmth spread through his chest. The hollow space had begun to fill. He was not yet fully restored, but he had passed a crucial part of the trial. The woman approached, her expression proud.
"You did well," she said. "The spirit sees your courage."
"But there is still more to do before your soul can be fully whole. You must travel to the next stage, a place where the amulet's power was first forged." Jace nodded, feeling a new sense of determination. "Then lead the way," he said. "I am ready for whatever comes next." As they prepared to leave the plateau, Jace glanced back at the shadows he had faced. They were gone, but their lessons remained. He had begun to understand that the amulet's trial was not just about power. It was about understanding oneself, facing fears, and earning the strength to carry responsibility. With the sun rising higher in the sky, they rode onward deeper into the desert toward the mysteries that awaited. Jace's heart was steady, his resolve firm. The journey was far from over, but he knew one thing for certain: he would not fail. The sun hung high over the desert as Jace and the woman rode through a narrow pass between jagged cliffs. The plateau they had left behind lay far behind them, bathed in golden morning light. The air was dry, but carried a strange electricity, as if the desert itself recognized the importance of their journey. "The next place is the heart of the amulet's power," the woman said, her voice steady. "It is a hidden canyon known only to a few. The spirit's trials there will test everything you have learned: your courage, your wisdom, and your patience. One wrong step, and the amulet may take more than it has before." Jace nodded, gripping the reins tightly. The hollow ache in his chest was lighter now, a constant reminder of the soul he had lost, but it no longer weighed him down. He felt stronger, braver, and more aware of himself. He had faced the shadows of his past, learned patience, and trusted the woman beside him. Whatever awaited in the canyon, he knew he had changed. They rode for hours, following a narrow trail that twisted through rocky hills and arid washes. The sun moved slowly across the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the stones. At last they reached the entrance to the hidden canyon. A narrow arch of rock opened into a dark passage, lined with jagged stones and deep shadows. "This is it," the woman said softly. "Once you enter, you must rely on yourself. I can guide you only so far. The spirit will decide if you are worthy." Jace took a deep breath, dismounted, and approached the arch. The shadows inside seemed to shift and writhe, almost alive. He could hear a faint humming, like the beating of a distant drum, and felt the amulet's pull deep in his chest, urging him forward. "Remember what you have learned," the woman said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Trust your courage. Trust your heart. And do not let fear rule you." Jace nodded and stepped into the canyon. The air grew cooler as he moved deeper, and the shadows seemed to stretch higher, forming shapes that flickered at the edge of his vision. He felt the amulet's energy vibrating in response to him, drawing him forward. The hollow ache flared briefly, then receded as he focused on his path. Suddenly a figure appeared in front of him. It was not a shadow this time, but a mirror image of himself, strong, confident, yet radiating the same doubts he had once carried. "Do you think you are ready?" the figure asked, its voice echoing eerily through the canyon walls. Jace squared his shoulders. "I am ready," he said firmly. "I have faced fear. I have faced regret. I have faced the unknown. I will not falter now." The figure stepped aside, and a path of glowing stones appeared, leading further into the canyon. Jace walked carefully, aware of the slightest misstep. Each stone pulsed with energy, and he could feel the amulet resonating with each step he took. The air shimmered around him, testing his focus and determination. Midway through the path, the shadows returned, but this time they were not past regrets or fears. They were visions of what he could become. A man full of arrogance, taking power for himself, ignoring those who guided him. The whispers were tempting. "You can take it all." Why struggle when power can be yours? Jace's heart pounded. He felt the pull of temptation, the urge to claim the amulet's power for himself. But he remembered the woman's words, the lessons of the shadows, and the hollow feeling in his chest that reminded him of the cost of greed and impatience. "No," he said firmly. "I seek not power for myself. I seek to restore what was lost and to be worthy of it. I will not be tempted." The shadows hissed and swirled, then dissipated into the walls of the canyon. The path ahead opened fully, leading to a small plateau at the center of the canyon. Here, the amulet's glow grew brighter than ever. Jace stepped forward cautiously. A soft light enveloped him, warm and comforting. He felt the hollow ache in his chest begin to fill, slowly at first, then more fully, until he felt complete. The trials, the shadows, the temptations, all of it had brought him here. He was whole again, not because he had been lucky, but because he had faced everything honestly, bravely, and with humility. The woman entered the plateau behind him, smiling. "You have done it," she said. "The spirit has accepted you. Your soul is restored, and the amulet's power now recognizes your courage and wisdom." Jace felt a weight lift from him, a sense of peace and balance he had never known. He looked at the woman, gratitude shining in his eyes. "I could not have done this without you," he said. "Thank you for guiding me." She shook her head. "You did this yourself, Jace. I only helped you see the path. The courage, patience, and wisdom were yours all along." For a long moment they stood in silence, watching the amulet's soft light pulse between them. The desert beyond the canyon stretched endlessly, golden and beautiful, untouched by the trials they had faced. The wind whispered through the rocks, carrying a sense of calm and renewal. Now the woman said the amulet must return to its resting place, where it will wait for the next journey, the next challenge. "Are you ready to leave?" Jace nodded. He felt lighter than he had in years, free of the hollow emptiness that had haunted him since touching the amulet. "Yes," he said, "I am ready." Together they left the canyon, retracing their steps through the narrow path and back into the sunlit desert. Jace rode with a sense of purpose, aware of the strength within him and the lessons he had learned. The amulet had tested him, and he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more complete. As they approached Red Rock, the town looked the same as before, dusty and quiet, yet different somehow. Jace felt different. He was no longer simply a wandering warrior. He was a man who had faced his fears, confronted his past, and earned the respect of something greater than himself. The woman turned to him as they neared the town's edge. "You have grown, Jace. Remember what you have learned. Strength alone is not enough in this world. Courage, humility, and wisdom are what make a true warrior." Jace smiled, tipping his hat. "I won't forget." They parted ways at the edge of the town. Jace rode toward the horizon, feeling the wind on his face and the sun on his back. Behind him, the woman returned to her home, the amulet safe and glowing softly around her neck. She watched him go, knowing that he had earned something far more valuable than power, respect, understanding, and the courage to face whatever came next. As Jace disappeared over the distant hills, the desert stretched endlessly before him. The journey had been difficult, but he knew it had changed him forever. He had lost part of himself, only to find it again through courage, trust, and perseverance. The amulet had not just tested him. It had taught him the meaning of strength, responsibility, and honor. And as the sun dipped toward the horizon, Jace felt a deep sense of peace. His soul was whole, his heart steady, and his spirit ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. For the wandering warrior, the desert was no longer just a place of danger. It was a place of growth, challenge, and discovery, and he was ready to meet it all with courage, wisdom, and an unshakable heart.